with soap and water. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing with a tissue and dispose of it. Avoid close contact.
Today, I will be guiding you through persuasive writing. Have you ever been in an argument or a discussion with somebody, and when the discussion has ended, you realize you just wasted 7,200 seconds of your life? And you wonder what just happened here? Well, it could be a number of factors. Maybe the topic wasn't interesting after all. Maybe arguments were presented, but they were unfounded. There was nothing to support them. Maybe after a while you realize that this was not a topic worth debating after all. Well, it happens sometimes, and I've had experiences like that. So today we want to be looking at how it is that we can make our persuasive arguments or persuasive discussions a little bit more substantive. What are some of the things we need to take into consideration when we are presenting an argument? And from time to time, we are called to present arguments, whether it's in writing for CSEC, maybe later on you're going to be motivational speakers, you'll need to persuade people of a particular road to take in life. Who knows, maybe you'll become a life coach, where you'll be telling people how to be successful in life. Either way, it is always good to know about persuasive devices, persuasive techniques, the entire art of persuasion. So in terms of our objectives, today, we want to be discussing the function and composition of a persuasive essay. We want to recognize a range of skills and techniques that are used in persuasion, and we also want to review guidelines for constructing a persuasive essay. So by the end of the lesson, these are what we hope to accomplish. Let's begin. When we talk about persuasive writing, what are we talking about? We are talking about the type of writing that tries to convince readers, but convince them to do what? It could be to do something. Yes, we can persuade people to do things. It could be to believe something. You know, sometimes people tend to impose their own beliefs on you, and they take all the evidence and they bring all kinds of arguments to get you to believe their point of view. So that's one element of persuasion, or one function of persuasion. Persuasive writing can also be used to change behavior. Of course, think of somebody who is presenting to a group of young people who are just not motivated anymore. You can persuade them to make something of their life, tell them that they can be better citizens. So these are some functions of persuasive writing, or persuasion in general. We use persuasion every single day. Think, for example, of advertisements. It is persuasion that drives you to these fast food outlets to get what looks like the biggest burger ever. Needless to say, when you go, that burger only fits in the palm of your hand. You know, sometimes I want to cry when I go to certain places to buy food, all right? So we use persuasion in advertisements. Think again. In our courts, we use persuasion. Think of a lawyer trying to persuade the jurors that his client is innocent, or a lawyer persuading the jurors that the person is guilty. That's persuasion in action right there. Persuasion also comes into play in politics. Exactly. So when our politicians, for example, around the time when it's close to election, oh yes, they come out and they persuade us to vote for them because they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And if you put a particular party in power, then that party is going to ensure that such and such things are done. So these are examples of how we use persuasion in our everyday life. So persuasive writing is not just something that you put on paper. It actually has functionality in everyday experiences. To continue the discussion on the uses of persuasive writing, people can be persuaded to support a cause. For example, please support our fundraiser. It's for a good cause. And sometimes our schools do that in order to get funding for whatever aspect of the school life, right? People will be persuaded to contribute, whether in cash or kind, to the school's venture. To urge people into action, for example, please protect our wildlife. And that is one of the cries, especially when it comes on to our environmental concerns these days. There is a lot of persuasion for people to consider the wildlife, stop making certain species go extinct, stop cutting down trees, etc., and so on. Persuasion can be used to advocate for a change. And we saw a lot of this a few days ago, especially in the United States, where a certain group was marginalized and there was violence meted out against them, right? So people came out and they started to demonstrate that there should be a change in the society. So, for example, it is time for the violence to end. And I'm sure that this is one of the changes that we would like to see in our own society. So the powers that be, and even us as regular citizens, continue to write to the Observer, continue to make your voice be heard out there, because it is really time for the violence in society to end. We can also use persuasion to prove somebody wrong. I remember when, at the onset of the COVID virus in Jamaica, one of the biggest arguments was that it was the 5G cell towers that was contributing to the spread of the coronavirus. So arguments could be presented to prove that point wrong. The 5G towers caused the coronavirus. That is probably not the case, as scientists are now seeing. So we can use persuasion to either prove a point or to prove somebody wrong. Persuasion can further be used to evoke empathy. I bring your attention to some of the advertisements that you probably see on cable. You know, sometimes they present these little animals that they have taken off the streets, and you see the pitiful little eyes looking at you, and they say, please save these animals. Without you, they will not last another day. Right, so you're evoked, your sympathetic nature is evoked right there, and maybe you want to contribute to saving these animals. Persuasive writing can also be used to create interest. For example, better grades get you a better placement at university. So what are you going to be persuaded to do there? Very good, to work hard. Get good grades at CSEC so that when it comes down for you to transition to university, you have no problem. And of course, persuasion is most times used to get people to agree with your perspective on a particular issue. I'm sure you'll agree that Ferrero Rocher is the best chocolate ever. And I could give you a number of points to support that claim right there. Go out and try and get some Ferrero Rocher. You'll realize that you've never eaten chocolate so delicious in your entire life before. But that's my perspective. Have I persuaded you enough? Try it and let me know. So we have just looked at some uses of persuasive writing. And what we are seeing is that they are applicable in various areas of our everyday lives. In order to effectively communicate a piece, in order to communicate points that will cause people to change their actions, cause people to become converted, cause people to believe in what we are saying, there are some techniques, some mechanisms that we can include in our persuasive arguments in order to stir people to action or to change reaction, change behavior, and so on. So what are some of those techniques? I'm sure you would have gone through some of these maybe from grade 9 or so. What are some examples of persuasive techniques that writers use to embellish their arguments so that they become more forceful, more convincing? All right. Yes, those are some. Let us look at some others. We have appeals. Sometimes writers use appeals to get to your emotions. So we can have emotional appeal, where the person causes you to feel sympathy, causes you to want to act, react, or so, right? People can appeal to your fears. Don't do that because you're fearful now, you won't want to probably take that path. Your desire to seem intelligent, and who doesn't want to seem or sound intelligent, right? So that's one of the devices or the techniques that you can infuse in your own persuasive pieces. Appealing to emotions, appealing to fears, appealing to desires, and one desire is a desire to seem intelligent. All right. Another technique that can be used is the whole idea of evidence. And for me, this is one of the most important techniques or devices. All right. So using evidence, it is baseless to provide an argument for an hour and there is no supporting point. Where are your arguments coming from? What are you using as support? So the evidence makes the reader see the author is knowledgeable about whatever topic is being discussed and that the ideas flow in a more logical order. All right? Sometimes writers use inclusive and exclusive language. What do we mean by that? The writer puts him or herself in the argument. So this is not an I issue or a you issue. It is an us or an our issue. Do you see how that can be effective? Yes, what it does is that it doesn't create a sense of isolation. Everybody is involved in this. So we all have to work together to protect the environment. We all have to work together to stop polluting the sea lines or the seashore so that the coral reefs and so on are dying. So in terms of the inclusivity, inclusive language such as we, our, us, are sometimes used to persuade the reader by creating a sense of solidarity. We are in this together. All right, so the reader or the audience is more motivated to become a part of whatever you're persuading them to be a part of. Other techniques include cause and effect. So because we are polluting our drains and blocking the drainage systems and so on, we have flooding in several areas. So maybe there's a call there for us to review how we treat our surrounding. We could also use an analogy. So an analogy is really a comparison. You use one situation to explain another. So it's a point of reference. You use one situation to describe another. And what it does is to bring out points of comparison between the two entities so that, to make the lesson a bit clearer in terms of what it is you are persuading the persons to do or to see or to believe. And then the grand rhetorical questions. So the rhetorical question, these are questions that are normally asked in the piece, or even if you're speaking or you're writing, they are questions that are posed. But I tend to want to be very cautious with the use of rhetorical questions because sometimes the rhetorical questions really are not rhetorical. If the answer is yes or no, it is probably not rhetorical because at the end of the day, what the rhetorical question is supposed to do is supposed to get your audience to think about an issue. So I have had students writing, for example, let's say the issue is teenage pregnancy, and this is the grand rhetorical question. Do you want your teenage daughter to get pregnant? Like, seriously? No. So, so when you're using the rhetorical question, you have to be very strategic with it. In fact, I tell students, experiment with other techniques or devices. Leave rhetorical question alone if you're not going to be using it effectively. And that is applicable to all other techniques or devices. Whatever you're going to infuse into your essay to make it believable, into your argument to make it convincing, make sure that it is effective. So rhetorical questions that are just lying there, requiring a yes or no answer, you might not want to use those in your persuasive piece. Activity time. Now what I'm going to do is to give you some scenarios and you're going to tell me which technique or device is being used, all right? Are you ready? So remember, we have analogy, we have rhetorical question, we looked at comparison and contrast, we saw the use of emotive language that spurs people to react a certain way. All right, bear those in mind, among others that you might know, and see which of them is in each of these techniques, is in each of these examples. All right, first one. Statistics have shown that over the last decade, cases of flooding in Jamaica have been on the increase. What device or technique is being used here? Statistics have shown that over the last decade, cases of flooding in Jamaica have been on the increase. The use of evidence. And what is the evidential material here? The use of statistics. Very good. Next one. We have a responsibility to safeguard our environment against pollution. What is the technique here? We have a responsibility to safeguard our environment against pollution. Inclusive language. And what pronouns gave that away? The use of we and our. So this is not a one-person thing. This is an everybody thing. Very good. Next one. Think of yourselves as the next pioneers in world leadership, the next generation of change. What's a technique? Appeal to emotion, exactly. So you're telling these people, I'm thinking young people, that you can be the world leaders of change, the next people who are going to inspire change in the universe. Now, who doesn't want to do that? I am definitely convinced. Please tell me how, where do I sign up? All right, that kind of thing. The last one, school is like an open field for exploration, and students are the explorers. Kind of gave that one away right there. All right, so this is an analogy. So I'm using the idea of an open field for exploration. And if school is like that, then we can see how students can benefit from the whole school experience. Aren't you just excited just by looking at it like that? Have you ever seen school life like that? A place where you can just explore and be yourself and learn and be bright and so on? I hope you're fully persuaded now to continue with your school life. All right, moving on. So in terms of structuring the essay now, there are some pointers to take into consideration. But at the baseline, every essay has 3 main components. Can anybody tell me what those are? Every essay that you will write has 3 main components. What are they? An introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Let's look at the introduction. So when you're writing your essay, and we're going to delve a little bit more in detail, if not in this lesson, then in the next class. The introduction should begin with a hook, and it should contain your thesis statement. What do I mean by a hook? From the get-go, your persuasive essay should grab your reader's attention. From the very first sentence you put on the page, it should hold the reader's attention, so that is what we call the hook. And there are several ways that we can come up with the start of an essay to make it very interesting, but we'll look at that later on. And then you have your thesis statement at the end of the first paragraph. And the thesis statement is the compass for the rest of your essay. What it does is to outline 3 solid points that you'll be developing in your essay. Remember, we said that when you are persuading people, it's not just to put arguments out there because you think so. I've heard that before. So how did you know that? But just know. No, don't just know. Know it from somewhere. Where is your source? Where are you getting the information from? All right, so that's what the thesis statement does. It acts as a compass to where the rest of your essay will go. The body is where you flesh out now. Remember, you would have come up with 3 points in the thesis statement. The body is where you delve into great detail in terms of giving explanations, reasons, the comparison, the contrast, the analogies. That is where this part comes in now. So you're fleshing out each point that you would have raised in your thesis statement. And then, because all good things must come to an end, you want to ensure that you have a nice little conclusion that sums up everything, and so the reader is left with something to take away or to think about. All right, so those are the 3 main building blocks of your essay. And I'm going to suggest that you get the introduction right, because if you set the stage with your introduction, everything else is going to fall in line smoothly, providing you can give evidence and supporting details for whatever point you would have raised in the thesis statement. So you see, easy breezy. All right. We will get back to looking at how we develop the essay later on. Before you start your essay, though, you have to bear certain things in mind. Don't attack an essay. It will attack you right back. And guess what? You will lose. So be strategic in the way you approach your essay. The first thing that you want to pay attention to is your audience. Who are you writing for? Who are you speaking to? And no, the audience is not necessarily your teacher. You'll know your audience based on the topic that you are writing about. All right, so before you start writing, pay attention to your audience. Every message is not for everybody, and the way you communicate the message cannot work for every audience. Think of it this way. If you are presenting, say, to a graduating class from a university, and you are presenting motivational speeches now to a group of basic school students, are you going to structure those motivational talks the same way? No, you would have to retrofit it because of your audience. So if it's a graduation class from the university, then your language is going to be different, your tone is going to be different. If you choose to use humor, it is going to be different. As opposed to, or as when you compare it to the speech that you'd present to basic school children, you'd have to ensure that it's at their level. So that's why audience is important. It will determine a lot of things. It will determine the language you use, your tone. It will determine what kind of position you can take and how you communicate the point to motivate or persuade the audience. So who will read your writing, and who do you need to convince? Are 2 questions you need to ask yourself. The audience could be friends, your teacher, parents, your principal, readers of a newspaper, the Prime Minister of Jamaica. And we can see how all of these audiences would require a different type of message. I want to think that the way you speak to your friends is not the same way you'd want to speak to the Prime Minister. No, that would be inappropriate, right? So you have to know how to fix your argument so that it suits the audience that you are writing for. Right, and then you want to consider your tone. Is it going to be a casual presentation, or are you required to be professional? You have to bear that in mind. All right, so I'm going to engage you in another activity. I'm going to give you topics, and you're going to tell me which audience these topics would be more than likely suitable for. All right, so the first one, soda should not be offered in school cafeterias. Who do you think you'd be speaking to if you were to write a speech or present some form of persuasive piece about this? Who would it be for? Soda should not be offered in school cafeterias. Yeah, maybe principals, persons who manage the cafeteria. Yes, do you think it would be for your friends? Not necessarily. This is something you want to take to people who are in charge of the cafeteria. So maybe the board of management of the school, principal, cafeteria manager. Very good. So you see that the audience has to be taken into consideration. Number 2, schools should teach abstinence-only education. Who would a piece like this be suitable for? Maybe personnel from the Ministry of Education, the ones who do the curriculum development, probably. Teachers, principals, very good. Students should be given a year off from studies after high school. Yeah, I can hear you raving for this one. It's not going to happen, but yeah, just say it was possible. Who would it be suitable for? Who would you be persuading to believe this? Students should be given a year off. Parents, maybe. Schools, probably. Ministry, maybe. So you see how you would have to alter your script or alter the persuasive piece to fit the audience that you're writing for. Last one, journalists should have access to all government business. Who would that be suitable for? Maybe persons in government, probably. Media personnel, yes. So this is what I mean when I say you have to know your audience so you'll know how to structure your piece, how to communicate your persuasive piece effectively to your audience. The second thing, choose a side. Remember, this is an argument. So you want to be discussing or giving your ideas on a particular side of the fence. You can't play boaty. I remember when I was young, we used to play boaty, so that person went in and played on both sides. It's not going to be applicable this time. So you have to choose a position because that's how you're going to present your argument, and then know this position will be stated in your thesis statement. As I said, when we get to actually writing the essay, we will look at how we infuse our position in the thesis statement. All right? Third point, do your research. Why do you think the researching aspect of the persuasive piece is important? Exactly. Remember that you are presenting something for people to change their way of life, change their belief, change their position. You can't just communicate what you think out of your head. You have to do research, corroborate your points with research. Now, I'm sorry, for those people who, 1, don't watch news, 2, don't read Observer, don't read newspaper, don't tune into anything educational, but they can tell you everything that is happening on Facebook and Insta. I'm sorry for you. This is where now you have to read widely, because remember, in the exam, you won't be privy to these materials for reference, so you have to know things. I'm going to suggest that you tune into at 7 o'clock every evening, TVJ News. You'll pick up a thing or two so that you can use it as points of reference in your essay. All right? Read the Observer, read the newspaper, read widely, educational materials, so that whatever topic you're given to write on, chances are you'll be able to discuss it in a very substantive way, and you'll be able to communicate your points effectively. So in order to convince the reader, you need more than just an opinion. You need facts or examples to back up your opinion, so be sure to do the research. I mean, as a pastime, because you're at home now, go on the internet, browse through what is happening in the environment. These are topical issues. Look at what is happening with tourism. Look at what is happening with our entertainment industry. These are points that you could be asked to present arguments on. Just read for read's sake. Knowledge cannot be too much. And at the end of the day, and I hope I'm motivating you, persuading you, I hope I'm appealing to your sense of wanting to sound like intellectuals. Yes. Ensure that you read widely so that you'll be well equipped with information that you can use to support your points. Make a plan. As with everything in life, you must have a plan. If you don't have a plan, what's going to happen? Everything is going to fall apart. So, you want to ensure that from the get-go, you start jotting down your points. You get a topic, you've considered your audience, you have done your research already, so you have a few points that you can use. Make a plan. What's your hook or your thesis going to be like? How are you going to support your argument? And you will notice, I don't know how many of you have seen an actual CSEC paper, but there's a little section there that you're given to jot your points down. Yes, make a plan. How are you going to approach the essay? You have to be very careful with that. You have to give an argument with support, argument again with support, and you must have a counter argument. So I'm just going to pause here to show you how you can plan out your essay. Follow me here. All right, so this is your essay plan. The first point is to ensure that you understand the topic that you are given. If you do not understand the topic, chances are you're going to be communicating information that is not so accurate. So make sure you understand the topic that you are given. Point number 2. Where do you think you go from here? Choose a side. Which side of the argument? If the question does not specify it, because sometimes the questions are left open, give your opinion. Which side are you going to take? If it says you're to agree, agree. If it says you're to disagree, do likewise. So choose a side. Once you have chosen your side, I'm going to suggest that you start brainstorming ideas. So whatever comes to your mind in support of your point, write it down. Brainstorm ideas. From all of those ideas now, choose 3 points that you can develop in your essay. Now, on the matter of the counter argument here, that one is very important. The counter argument. What is the counter argument, you may ask? Remember that in everything in life, there are 2 sides to a story. Now, the counter argument is important because what it does is to show your audience that you know the other side. Because nothing at all in life is one-sided. So it shows that you are aware of the other side, but you have to be careful with this counter argument. Because sometimes what students do is to use the counter argument to kill their main argument. And you don't want that. You just want to present your counter argument so that your audience is aware of the other side. But having presented your counter argument, you come right back to your main argument. So that way you create a balance in your essay. All right, so create your counter argument. But remember, it is not to take away from your main argument. Rather, it is supposed to help to strengthen your main argument. So yes, you're aware that this particular instance or this particular situation might be seen, but always bring it back now to your main argument. So this is a good plan that you can have for your essay. And the brainstorming process is particularly important because sometimes students fumble in the exam to find points because they did not make a plan, they did not brainstorm the ideas, and what you realize is that before long, 40 minutes have passed and you're out of time, so you don't get to complete your argument, all right? So be careful with that. Okay, we'll come back here in a short while. Now, the do's and don'ts of persuasive writing. When you are writing an argument or presenting an argument, the writing aspect now, divide your essay or your discussion in 5 paragraphs. So that way you can systematically develop your essay. All right, and remember your counter argument. It creates a balance and it shows that you are also aware of the other side of the argument. Have a thesis statement, and I cannot overemphasize the need for a thesis statement. If you do not have a direction for your essay is going to be all over the place, no particular focus, and you might end up in distress. All right, sometimes the thesis statement is overtly stated, 3 main points. Sometimes it is implied. But my suggestion is write out the 3 points so that you can remember which points you're going to develop in the body of your essay. Do come up with 3 main points to support your argument. And I say 3 because 3 creates a nice little balance in your essay. All right, so come up with 3 solid points that you're going to discuss in your essay. Show the counter argument, we went through that already, and have a conclusion that just brings everything on home. Don't leave your essay hanging. Tie everything together in a nice conclusion. So these are some of the do's. In terms of the don'ts now, don't begin with a start like, hello, my name is Miss Brown, and I'm going to be writing about. That is so grade 4. We want to, have a more mature start to our essay. So experiment with different ways that you can start your essay. For example, start off with a nice quote. Start off with a definition. Start off with a strong statement. Start with a rhetorical question that actually sparks or, causes people to think. Experiment with different starts for your essay. But hello, my name is, and I'm going to be writing about, as you young people would say, that not keeping. All right? Don't use the word I. Try not to use the word I in your essay. I know sometimes people are tempted to do so, but what you can do is to substitute that I with individuals, persons, it is the belief that try not to use I in your essay. Don't be indecisive. We had spoken about that already. Pick a side. You must be arguing from an angle, so pick a side. And don't forget to support your opinions with facts and examples. Now, you might be wondering, in the essay, I'm not going to have the National Geographic to read. I'm not going to have the newspaper and so on. I gave you a strategy that you can use already. Read widely. But let us say you choose not to read widely. What you can do in the essay is to create sources that sound reasonable enough. And notice I'm emphasizing reasonable enough. So if you're using statistics, let the statistics sound, credible. So let us say you're talking about the impact of coronavirus on the environment. Statistics have shown that 95% of the world will die by 2021. Is that reasonable? No. So you want to make sure that whatever source you are creating, it sounds credible and creditable. So if you don't read widely and you don't have any real sources to use when you're writing the essay for the exam purpose, you can create sources, make up sources, but make them sound realistic enough. All right. Now, so what we have done so far is to discuss the function and composition of a persuasive essay. We looked at some practical uses of the persuasive essay in real life. We said that persuasion is used in our courts, it is used in advertisement, our politicians use it, and I'm sure that you could find other examples. We looked at techniques that we can use in our persuasive pieces. We looked at the whole idea of analogies. We looked at the whole idea of comparison and contrast, using evidence, providing facts, and that sort of thing. And we reviewed some steps for writing the persuasive essay, some of which are written on the board right there. 1, know your topic. Number 2, know your audience. Number 3, brainstorm ideas that you can actually put in your essay. Number 4, ensure that you have supporting details for the points that you are going to write. Number 5, establish 3 solid points that you're going to use in your essay. And go ahead and write your essay. Make it convincing. Produce good arguments. And of course, we have to give a little practice question. So here is your practice question. There have been recent concerns in Jamaica about the destruction of mangroves, and this was even a feature on TVJ last night, if my memory serves me correct. So there have been recent concerns in Jamaica about the destruction of mangroves. The Minister of Environment has pledged millions of dollars for education campaigns geared at sensitizing citizens to the need for protecting mangroves. Write a letter to the editor of your local newspaper in which you present an argument for or against the move that the Environment Minister is about to make. All right, first step, understanding the question, what are you being asked to do here? You're being asked to write a letter. The audience is specified. For whom are you writing this letter? You're writing it for the Minister of Environment. So from the get-go, you see where this is going to go. You see that you have to choose a particular tone. You have to pay attention to your vocabulary. You have to pay attention to the way you address the minister. So audience plays an important role here. Were you told the stance that you are to take? It says present an argument for or against. So you can choose. For or against what though? For the move of the minister to put millions of dollars into educating people about protecting mangroves, or against the move for millions of dollars to be put in a project like this. Do you agree? Do you disagree? That's what you're being asked to write a letter to the editor about. All right, but very quickly though, what are 3 points that we could include? Let us say we are supporting the minister. I would definitely be in support of this. What are 3 points you could include in this essay or this letter? You could look at the fact that mangroves protect the shorelines. Yes, mangroves also prevent soil erosion. And mangroves are important because they filter our water systems so that some of the bacteria and other organisms that are in the water, the mangroves actually filter those. So when the mangroves are depleted or when they are gone, what's going to happen to some of our water channels? That's something we should consider. So go ahead, you can try this essay, share it with your friends. And I would really love to see some of these responses. You could actually even write a letter to the editor and see how well your argument goes. All right, so this is where we have to stop for today. That's all the time we have for CSEC English Language. You can watch back today's lesson on onespotmedia.com and on JNN between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. Class time resumes tomorrow at 9:45 a.m. right here on TVJ. Until then, keep safe.
It's here. Interactive classes for all ages on the School Time channel on onespotmedia.com. With a combination of live Zoom classes and recorded class time, Schools Not Out lessons, and numerous educational content, we've created a comprehensive 24-hour channel dedicated exclusively to educating our nation's youth. Early childhood through to primary, secondary and tertiary, it's one stop on one spot for education 24 hours. Brought to you by the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information in association with Television Jamaica Limited.